Hello and welcome back to my channel, and thanks for rejoining me with my Holmes Basic Dungeons & Dragons solo campaign. We're reaching an exciting juncture in the series, the campaign. We had spent an entertaining evening in the Salty Siren, a bit of a riotous tavern at the dockside. We are now resident there. The environment was rather rowdy. There was lots of games, arm wrestling. We had a lot of entertainment, a few interesting encounters, and it finished on quite a tense note with the captain of the watch being present and revealing some information that was of a tantalizing nature. So without further ado, let us get on. This is called the exciting title you've all been waiting for, Chapter 4, The Tower of Zenopus. So, we left the characters in our last episode invited by the captain of the town watch, Amifrey Vane, to a midnight meeting. The purpose of this would be revealed, but it looked as though it involved the legendary Tower of Zenopus. This is a place they have only heard hush rumors about. The characters make their way to the promontory that is the site of the old lighthouse. It has turned a wild and stormy evening, and clouds fly past the moon and speed out across the vast darkness of the sea. They spot the captain, waiting close to the foot of the tower. A pale glow illuminates the area around, emanating from the bright lantern that points out to sea. She beckons them over to a low enclosed wall area, out of the wind where she can be heard. She says that before she can discuss the mission at hand, she must relate the tale that is told in the town and which the characters have only vaguely become aware of. 100 years ago, the sorcerer Zenopus built a tower on the low hills overlooking Port Haven. The tower was close to the sea cliff east of the town, and appropriately next door to the graveyard. Rumor has it that the magician made extensive cellars and tunnels underneath the tower. The town is located on the ruins of a much older city of doubtful history, and Zenopus was said to excavate in his cellars in search of ancient treasures. 50 years ago, on a cold wintry night, the wizard's tower was suddenly engulfed in green flame. Several of his human servants escaped the Holocaust, saying their master had been destroyed by some powerful force he had unleashed in the depths of the tower. Needless to say, the tower stood vacant for a while after this. But then the neighbours and the night watchman complained that ghostly blue lights appeared in the windows at night, that ghastly screams could be heard emanating from the tower at all hours, and goblin figures could be seen dancing on the tower roof in the moonlight. Finally, the authorities had a catapult rolled through the streets of the town, and the tower was battered to rubble. This stopped the hauntings, but the townsfolk continued to shun the ruins. The entrance to the old dungeons can be easily located as a flight of broad stone steps leading down into darkness, but the few adventurous souls who have descended into crypts below the ruins have either reported only empty stone corridors or have failed to return at all. Other magic users have moved into the town, but the site of the old tower remains abandoned. Whispered tales are told of fabulous treasure and unspeakable monsters in the underground passages below the hilltop, and the storytellers are always careful to point out that the reputed dungeons lie in close proximity to the foundations of the older pre-human city, to the graveyard, and to the sea. So that is the basically the kind of more or less common knowledge in Port Haven of the Tower of Zenopus. It is a local site. It has been in existence for over 50 years. It has been demolished. It is now what you would classify as a place of mystery, right on your doorstep. So your fantasy trope of having your local place of mystery, Tower of Zenopus, fits the bill quite nicely. The characters are intrigued with this information. The recovery mission. the captain has a problem. It would appear that towards the end of his known presence in the tower, Zenopus had used a powerful artifact to aid him in his underground exploration and the increasingly dark experiments he was performing. Oh dear. This discovery was unearthed by Lore Master Telemark while investigating and analysing some arcane scrolls in grimoires relating to the subject, only recently uncovered in the town archives. Okay. He concluded that if this item were to fall into the hands of malign forces, it would be a danger to the town and the Green March. Well, he further ascertained that the device was actually a construction that Zenopus had spent his life working on. It was named the Amulet of Power, an instrument which augmented mental and magical powers. This, it would appear, had been enabled by trapping the soul of a dark entity and harnessing its demonic energy to the will of the user. My goodness, what a despicable device. With the rumours now coming out of the east of a powerful necromancer who searches for lost relics and ancient artifacts exactly like this Amulet of Power, the Council of Lords, who govern Porthaven, have decided to contract brave bands of adventurers to venture into the ruins and seek out traces of this device, locate it, and return it to their safekeeping. The captain, she emphasizes that a generous reward would be given in return for any information pertaining to this relic. Okay, so that's our incentive. We've basically got to go and see if, I suppose the ultimate thing is to actually recover the relic, but any information will be also very welcome. And we are expecting a generous reward, which is music to the ears of young adventurers. So with this mission outlined, the characters agree to accept the challenge and prepare the next morning. So we trundle back to the Salty Siren, bid everyone good night, off to bed, up early the next morning. We're ready, we're kitted out, we've got all our stuff ready, we're going through our inventory and whatever, getting our sword blades sharpened, our arrows ready, make sure all the fletching's right, doing all the necessary duties. And Gormadoc, who is the innkeeper, he smiles as we leave and wishes us luck. Seek out the ruins of the tower on the hills to the east of the town. Then follow your eyes. No doubt adventure awaits you there. So we are primed and ready for adventure. And we're going to be exploring the Tower of Zenopus today. So that's what our dungeon master would have said to us, and we would be all kind of bristling with energy, nervous energy, anticipation and excitement. But he would say, I've got a couple of house rules I've got to bring into the game today. Basically, he says, I adore these set of rules and I follow them to the letter. However, I do have some modifications that I want to talk about, and I think it's only worthwhile me going through them just now. So on combat modifications, and because of the high octane level of Holmes and the fact that you're going to witness probably one of the most deadly role-playing games known to mankind, I think combat modifications do need to be emphasized right at the start. And so for this initial scenario, we're only going to use rules as written with a few very minor amendments. So I think I alluded to the fact that I would be using combat tactics, but in this instance, combat tactics will feature in future episodes. But for now, narrative rulings will be employed, and let's see how we get on with this. After all, this was the way it was meant to be played. So I'm going to use a very kind of narrative style in the combats. So if I've got people like doing things in combat, I'm going to try to emphasize really kind of what they're doing, and whether like a shield breaks the parry, or the weapon almost slips from their hand, that type of thing, just to kind of ramp up the excitement, and not use any kind of basic mechanics on this, which I think might stilt the overall feel, and just while we get used to the system and used to playing it live. So this is the famous change to the fact that in Holmes everything does 1d6 damage, I am going to make, I have relented and decided that for, I just can't resist it for my two-handed and heavy weapons. So when rolling for damage for two-handed and heavy weapons, we're going to use 1d8. So no, we're not going to use a d6. So we're going to employ this dice rather than one of these. These can be used every turn. So in Holmes, it says you use them every 2 turns. And I think that's just too much of a handicap. And it's also a bit of a detractor. You don't really feel maybe part of the action. And you just feel a bit out of it. So I thought the way to penalise that is that they can be used every turn, but are penalised for being slower and more unwieldy by having dex divided by 2 when determining who gets first blow. So the way Holmes works is that its highest dex goes first. So if I divide your dex by 2, you're already at a disadvantage and you're more likely to be last in the sequence. And for daggers, the famous daggers doing twice as much damage as everything else. For daggers, we're only going to roll at 1d4. So I'm not really going to include things like short swords and other maybe lighter weapons. I think they just go with normal weapons. But I do think that daggers are probably an exception, and they should only really get 1d4 damage. And these can be used, they can still be used twice per turn, which is great. But the second blow is at half dex. So basically, you can do your first blow, say your dex was 12, you do it at 12 in the order. The next blow will be done as if you had dex 6. So you're probably going to be last with that. And then moving to close range in encounters for combat, I really was resting with this in Holmes, just exactly how far you move in combat, and using these things here and trying to marry them up with the examples here. And I thought, well, let's just cut to the chase and do something quite simple. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have a house rule to say that if we, this envisages, say a goblin is 60 feet away from us, and he wants to close with us for combat. We might be able to loose an arrow if he can't get to us in time. So say his movement is 60 per turn. I'm saying that moving to close range and encounters for combat, divide the turn move by 3 to establish the move per round. Once in melee, use the standard rates. Now the standard rates are 20 for an unencumbered man and 10 for an armoured individual to move around. And this is probably when you actually get into combat and you're within 10 feet and you're moving around, and maybe you dispatch this individual and you want to move to this one that's a bit further over here. I mean, you might have to move, but you could probably do that 20 feet away if you are, say, unarmoured. And if he was within 10 feet, you could do it if you were armoured without having to maybe lose a turn. I want trying to simulate this goblin character situation of the 60 by saying, say this character has got a bow, and this goblin can move at 60 per turn. If he can only move 20, I could fire a shot, and then another 20, I could fire another shot, and then we can do a bit of fighting. So that's maybe a bit of a simplistic example. I'm expecting things to purposely move a bit faster than that. But that was maybe my thoughts on it, and it's really just a kind of simple high level. I didn't really want to get the calculator out and do all sorts of strange sums and whatever. I'm very open to suggestions in the comments about that. And also to really kind of just to bring in a bit of the heroic factor and maybe the kind of the element of chance. I thought for rolls of 1 and natural rolls of 1 and 20 in combat, I'm going to interpret these as either mishaps or advantages or something heroic, such as, say, you slip on a pool of blood, you knock an opponent off the feet, you get behind an opponent, you lose your balance, the weapon slips from your hand. It's like you'd say your shield strap breaks, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to try to bring that in and almost have a mechanism that will trigger that. And it's not really going to happen very often because you're not going to get a natural 20 or a 1 too often. But when it does, we might have a bit of fun with that and just to kind of spice up. And who's to say that this will be enough and make the combat quite engrossing? So that's what I'm hoping. And also moving on to the solo exploration. Now, for exploration in this, we were using a pre-generated module this time. I'm not using my random dungeon generation system. It's not a true solo thing. I'm using basically the module at the back here, the Tower of Zenopus, which has got a key here that I'm going to be reading off with a map. But I'm going to do it in such a way that I was going to try to maintain the element of being a solo role-playing experience. So for exploration in this pre-generated and designed scenario, we're going to simulate the randomness of the solo experience by having the characters select directions to go, make decisions on searching, and determine their interpretation of options. So we're going to use the characters a lot more as a kind of the wild card in this. And I am going to try to almost like herd sheep with the characters and get them to go down the right corridors and whatever. And I think that by bringing this element of chaos into the situation, we can get quite a nice feel. I do have to modify this. I can't just do it straight. It's like 50-50 all the time. So we can use a straight 50-50 choice. Or have more nuance by determining a logical option and following this on, say, a 1 to 4 and other options on a 5 to 6 or any combination. And we can use discretion on what combinations to employ. Also, I thought this would be a nice feature to bring in. The level of commitment to the decision can also be determined quickly to account for discussion, dissent, or dithering. So we might have a bit of a conflict of interest going on. They might dither about something. They lose time that way, and we could play that out. So I'm just going to use a single d6 or multiple dice depending on the situation. So, we come to a junction. I've got to make maybe a 50-50 to say we're going to go left or we're going to go right. Or do the characters have a bit more knowledge of the local location and think, actually, I know if I go forward, I'm going further into this whatever. I need to find a route that will aid me and assist me in that way. I maybe have to take a right because I can see another passage that goes to the left further up. It's that kind of thing. So in this pre-generated scenario, we also need to simulate the role of the solo DM and have this avatar feature in the narrative and interactions. So for this episode and probably the ones following it that I'm going to be doing, the Tower of Zenopus, I thought I would have another avatar and just see how this goes and actually play out almost like the role of the dungeon master as well, to describe, you go down a corridor, you come to a junction, what do you do, that type of thing. And let's just see how that goes and see how natural that is. So the best way, as I've found on anything to do with my channel, is just to give it a shot, roll the dice and see what happens. So we've got our merry band together. I have got I've got the original character sheets. I think the only modification was that I decided to give Fira, our elf, a short bow and 20 arrows, so she's got some missile capability. We've got our spells ready. We've got the charm person for Fira, and we've got the sleep ready for Beska. We've got our packs. We've got all our weapons ready. We are absolutely on it. Even Weberan's been looking at his tattoos and thinking, right, I'm gonna stay calm, or I'm gonna turn it on, get a bit of battle lust. We probably want to decide on what our marching order is, and based on I've done some summaries of their statistics that I can show you, and we've got the three on the first sheet: Candela, Argenta, and Fira, and we've got Weberan and Beska Miltar. Now, Beska Miltar, he's our magic user. Weberan's our lawful evil fighter. Fira's our elf. Argenta's our knight champion fighter, and Candela is our cleric, who is a zealous crusader. So they're all going to be acting to type. I have decided to give Argenta the leadership role, and she is what we would call our caller. And Beskar Miltar, being a studious soul and very good with his quill and his pen, we throw him the parchment and say, get on with it. You can do the mapping. You're supposed to stay at the back anyhow. You're the youngest. You've got a lot to learn. He's being rather denigrated. And particularly Weberan's probably giving him a bit of a hard time. So yeah, you pencil pushers. Try to show your true worth. You can maybe cast a couple of spells that might be useful, and in the meantime, why don't you do the mapping for us? And Argenta says, look, for goodness sake, Weberan, lay off Beskar Miltar. We're all one team here. Maybe just stare at some of your tattoos a bit more, calm down a bit. So we've got our stats out here. I think on party order, we're probably going to have, I think Weberan's quite keen to go up front. And Argenta, our leader, will go up front too. And behind them, we're going to have Farah with her, probably her bow ready, and ready to change that at a moment's notice to her sword. So we're going to have a bit of missile capability. And then behind those two, we thought we'd keep Candela maybe a bit further back, because looking at her hit points, she's not exactly top of the pack. And keep obviously Beskar Miltar back here too, and he can be still mapping as we progress forward, and we could be relaying back information. We're going to be progressing at a pretty slow speed. I think in the actual Holmes, when we look at it, we can move at 120 feet per turn, and a turn is in 10 minutes sections. So we have to rest after every 6 turns. We have to have 1 turn of rest. So every hour we have 10 minutes of rest. And yes, here we go. A fully armored man or carrying heavy load is going to be 120. So that is probably the standard rate of all our characters, and we'll move to the slowest. So that's what we're going to move every turn. So, and again, in comparison to AD&D, this is probably a bit more simplified, and we don't really have to get too hung up on things like timekeeping and distance traveled. But I'm going to try to keep as much a tab on it as possible. I think, and try to, because I think the time element is an important part of our adventure. On the packs that we've got these individual packs, and the ones who do have pack A and pack B, which do have some of the lighting implements. I think the one that's got the lantern is pack A, so Argenta will be carrying the lantern, and I think that's all we need. And the lantern will have a 30-foot range. If we were just walking along within the darkness, which we're not going to do because we're majoritively human, our elf Farah would be able to see 60 feet. But she has been a bit affected by the light, so she can't really take advantage of it. Okay, I think we are ready to get towards, go out of the town. We don't really go out of the town, we go towards the outskirts of the town. We reach the low hills that they were talking about. We do see some ruins on the hill. We approach it cautiously. There is a staircase ahead of us. So I get to the point where I read the first section. So the stairway from the surface leads 25 feet straight down and ends in the corridor marked start on the Dungeon Master's map. So my Dungeon Master avatar, he's got his map ready. He's got this thing. He says, I have got it all ready. I know what I'm doing. I've got the map. You will not. This is the last time you will see this. I have got it. So, and we employ Beskar Miltar. He gets his quill out. So Beskar, start mapping away. See how you get on. So he says, well, I need to get my parchment And someone please light that lantern. I can't really see what I'm doing here. It's very dark. He says, oh, this is exciting too, because this is probably my first dungeon adventure. I hope it goes well. And everyone else is in complete agreement with Beska Miltar here. They say, yes, we hope it goes well too, Beska. Let's get our map out. So I think the way I'm going to do it is that this is north, this way, and obviously south and east and west. We've got the staircase coming in about here. So I'm just going to draw this manually, and this is about the way that we would have done it back in the old days. And it's a 25, say it's 25 feet long. So I'll just do the staircase. And what the Dungeon Master says is, he says, well, you come down the staircase, and then in front of you, you see a passage that goes a further 30 feet. And it ends in a T-junction here. And also it carries on. And you can see this in the gloom. So if we're here with our little lantern, we can see up to about here with the light, and we can see a T-junction. We go, oh, this is exciting. We should proceed cautiously in our marching order. So we do. We get the weapons are ready. The lantern is all lit. Beska Miltar's got his scribing equipment primed and ready. He's already started his drawing. We're quite impressed. He's doing a good job. So we proceed down this empty corridor. Now all corridors in this dungeon are going to be 10 foot wide and 10 foot high. There will be wandering monsters every 3 turns, but maybe I won't do it for maybe the first hour, just to until the characters settle in. And also I thought I'd want to tailor and do not just have the free-for-all wandering monster. I don't want just any type of creature wandering around in here. It's quite tailored, this, so I'm going to be quite specific, and we're probably not going to have a wandering monster encounter this particular episode, but let's see. We might end on a cliffhanger, who knows. Okay, so the order is from Argenta. Let's carry on forward and get to this crossroads here. So we reach this point here, and our Dungeon Master says, okay, so you've reached the crossroads. This carries on for another 30 feet into the gloom, and this carries on for another 30 feet, and this carries on for another 30 feet. Okay, so we've reached the point where we have our first choice, and I would say that if we were going to debate the situation, we're probably going to be more prone to going forward. However, we might be tempted to go to the left or the right. So I don't think it's a fully straightforward. So I would say it's probably going to be a probability of, say, 60% forward. So 1 to 6, and then maybe 7 to 8 left, and 9 to 10. So let's get our 10-sided dice out for that, which I have got. Is that my 10? Should have got my 10-sided dice ready. Or is that an 8? That's an 8-sided dice. Here's my 10-sided. Yes, I've got it. And I need my dice shaker. So, based on that, let's find out exactly what directions the characters go. So they are going to go straight ahead. Okay, so that is our first decision. Probably quite a straightforward one. We didn't maybe have any dithering. And to do the calculation, I'm saying that was probably going to be 1, 2, 3. So we can do 120 feet until I have to mark off a turn. So I'll probably be using one of my post-it notes to just do the turns. And I'll make a note here. Okay. And again, I'm really just trying to kind of, it's almost like I'm using this episode really as a kind of get to know thing, kind of acclimatize, and just see what's the right feel for having items sitting around on the desktop, and the best way. But I think, you know, me mapping away here will give you a kind of visualization of what we're doing with our little characters in a marching order. So, in fact, we could probably put our characters on so that you can get a visualization of just exactly what they are doing and how they are mapping. As you can see that. It's almost like a zoom up. Okay, so we proceed forward. The Dungeon Master says, okay, you proceed forward. It's still an empty corridor. This goes another 20 feet. And it ends in a door. And we go, right. Okay, so we've got a door here, a closed door. So we approach the closed door. We have already traveled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we've still got another 40 before we do anything turn-wise. We've got a few options here. We can force the door open. It's always going to take a 1 or a 2 on a d6 to do that. If you don't do that, what I'm saying is we will be able to do it after that, but we will lose all element of surprise, and we won't be able to do anything. We might even attract things that are unwanted, that would be otherwise best left alone in this darkness. It's not a good option. And we can also listen, and the elf has a better chance of listening. The elf can do it on a 1 to 2. I'll just double check that is the case. There are some rules on page 10 here, where we have listen. When a character comes to a door, they may listen to detect any sound within. A die roll of 1 for humans, or 1 or 2 for elves, dwarves and halflings indicates that they have heard something. And obviously some monsters don't make any noise, like skeletons and zombies, or undead. But other monsters might be having conversation, they might be doing things, they're having a bit of a party, that type of stuff. And then doors, a roll of 1 or 2 indicates the door has been forced open. Of course, if the party has to hit the door several times before getting there 1 or 2, there is no possibility of surprising the occupants of the room. So we're left with a couple of choices. Are we going to listen to this, or are we going to? So I'll say let's do the old mechanic here. Yeah, I'm getting quite enjoying doing a bit of random stuff, just while we get heated up. And we'll say, let's do for this door. We'll do 1 to 3. They decide to force it. 4 to 5. They listen, and 6, they spend a bit of time, the rest of this turn, dithering about what they're going to do, and they're just not really that sure. They're not confident yet in their adventuring prowess. They are a bit confused about the situation. This is the first time they've come up against something like this. So let's get our d6 out and find out what is the situation with the characters. So they listen, they decide to listen to that door. So what we do is we'll probably employ our elf. So the elf, she removes her helmet, presses her ear against the door, this old seized up door. They're probably all very, very kind of almost like seized up wooden doors with those brackets on it that are all, probably rusting away. It's probably not very pleasant to get her ear against it. She says, I can take this one for the team. So a 1 or a 2, she will hear something. So she doesn't hear anything. And if I know what's in this room afterwards, or whatever it is that's beyond this door, but I can, if she had been able to hear something, I would have been able to describe that. So she says, I can't hear anything. I think probably use up the rest of our turn. So we've done 1 turn so far. I can't hear anything. I think we should open that door and just see what's in it. And they say, we totally agree with you. Fira, let's do this. Let's open this door. Let's get someone big and strong. Weberan, are you big and strong? Weberan looks at his statistics and he says, well, I'm not. I'm the wise. I'm the wise fighter. However, because I am blessed by the fact that I'm playing Holmes Basic, it doesn't really matter. I just have to roll a straight 1 or a 2. So you know what? I am just going to do that. So Weberan. And he says, Fira, get your bow ready. Come in behind me and charge. Let's go. A 1 or a 2, and he forces the door. So he does. Well done, Weberan. That's a good thing for Weberan. He's got a tick in the box. So the door is forced open. We probably don't make too much noise doing that. It's not too much of an effort for Weberan. Potentially it has been opened before. So within, we have in front of us, the Dungeon Master says, okay, so you come into an empty room. It is, I just have to look at my key. So it has, its size is 50 wide by 20 deep. And there's a small corridor on the opposite side leading to another door, which you can just see with the lantern spreads. You can just see the outlines of a door here. This room is empty. It looks as though it has not had any activity in it. There's not even any furniture or maybe some dust lying around, and the air is quite still, but nothing really, any sign of any habitation whatsoever. So Beskid Miltar says, well, I better map this room. And what I'm going to say is that rooms are probably take about a turn to map. So just be simplistic about it. So we're going to do a turn to map that room. And Beskid says, right, okay, I'm all done. I'm quite happy with that. We could also do things like for secret doors and whatever, but what we're doing is we're maybe just going to focus on this door, and we're probably going to have the same kind of decision again. And we think, well, are we going to bother with the hearing again, or are we just going to go for the same thing? I think maybe we would try this option again. And just see what it is, and then once we get more used to things, maybe I'll modify it to something different. So let's do the 1 to 6 and see what happens. So again, we're getting a bit tense. It's we've got the feeling that something inevitable is going to happen. So we do a 5. So we are going to listen again. Okay. So we get our elf up to do the listening. Okay, and it's a 1 or a 2, and she will be able to hear something. So she presses her ear against this door again. And what does she hear? Does she hear anything? So she hears nothing. She says, I still can't hear anything at all. I don't know. It's difficult to tell, with the dripping water in here and this kind of maybe there's a low kind of sort of gentle movement of air, just maybe a slow, not howling, but a kind of almost like this sort of dungeon sound of kind of that kind of thing going on. It's all very sinister, and maybe that kind of distort her hearing. So they're of the opinion that they need to do a bit of a repeat performance, and they think, right, okay, let's get our Argenta ready. Argenta said, right, okay, I'm just going to give this a good shove this time. Weberan, you've done a great job last time. I think I'll just do it for us, and we'll make sure that Fira has got her bow ready. Beskid Miltar, make sure that you're primed and ready with your spell. We might need to employ that. And also Candela, in case there's any devilish creatures from the underworld and the undead. be ready to turn them with your clerical powers. So we are already primed and ready to respond like an A-team. We're going to see whether we can bash this door open. So 1 or a 2, and Argenta does the business. So no, she gives it a good wallop. It does not open, so we think, okay, anybody else want to have a shot? And Webrand says, okay, well, I was pretty good the first time around, and I've been looking at this tattoo, which is a tattoo of door opening. I'm really gonna give it a bit of a swing. So yes, the tattoo of door opening works. It goes, bashes open. We have opened into a room. So after 2 attempts, the door opens. And in front of us, our dungeon master says, okay, well, you've come into a very large room. And in fact, he says, this is a large room. It's 120 feet by 100 foot. There are doors in the east, west, and south wall. Okay, so let's do a quick bit of mapping here. This is going to take me a while to work out. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it's going to be 120. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I just made it, and then we do this across like that to there. And down here, that is a big room. And he says, well, there's a door opposite. So on the same plane as this one, I think. It's difficult to look at my map sideways. He says there's a door here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here. Yeah, that's all. Also, he says, the room is furnished with rough tables and benches and as many beds as there are occupants. Whoa. What was that? What was that last word you said, Dungeon Master? Yeah, occupants. So there are beds, bunks, and who are they going to be? Who are the occupants? Well, according to the Tower of Zenopus, there's going to be at least 3 goblins. But the Dungeon Master has discretion to increase the number of goblins in the party if the party of adventurers is a large one. So if there's more than 3 in the party, have 5 goblins. More than 5, 7, or 8. So I would say because we've got 5 in our party, let's have 5 goblins. There are 5 goblins in here. They're probably, this is an enormous room for these goblins to be in. They could be basically anywhere in here. Let's find out where they are. So I think it's based on it's probably they're probably not going to be more than 10 feet away. They're not going to be sitting right in front of us here. They're probably going to be more in the central area. So let's do a kind of radius out, because they might have decided to gravitate into a corner, or are they going to be in the center? So let's do maybe a 1 to 2. They're in the center. 3, 4, 5, and 6, just to get a general positioning of where they are. First, these 5 goblins, because they're likely to be kind of centered on a particular spot, and this will just give us our initial vector of where they are. So they are in the middle, so they're going to be sitting in the middle. There are, let's do it in this kind of zone here, sitting in the middle, all shouting and bawling. And we're thinking, my goodness, Fairy, you meant to say you couldn't hear that? And she said, well, they are a bit of a distance away, and I'm not, I don't have bionic ears. I am just a simple elf. What are we going to do about this? I think I've got a chance of maybe firing off some arrows. Let's do it. So let's think about what the Tower of Zenopus says about this. They're saying that the goblins, they wear leather armor and carry swords and daggers, and they can each take 8-sided dice of hits, -1 point. That's all we really need to know about them, apart from the dexterity if we come into contact. We know there are 5 of them. So what we can do is we can actually generate their 5 statistics, and that's what I'm going to do now. So let's do that on another sheet. So we'll have goblins, and we've got 5 of them. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And what I think what's going to happen here is I'm probably going to basically leave this on a bit of a cliffhanger and just set this encounter up and just run through the next adventure, because I want to try and keep these adventures under 50 minutes. I think if they keep rambling on and on and on, there's no point. We're probably just doing it better, having a bit more episodic. We just so happened to get our first encounter towards the end. But what I can do is do the setup, and we can just straight off the bat next time have a nice big combat, and then you'll get to see exactly how deadly, how many of these characters actually survive this. We also have the option that we're not going to get surprise. So this is where we can maybe we can show some of the options that are open to us. So because we've made a bit of a noise trying to get in, the goblins, they can see whether they surprise us, and we are surprised to see them. So they will surprise us on a 1 to 2 on a d6. So they don't. So we're both unsurprised. For some reason, they've been maybe too distracted, and they just suddenly realize that we've come in. We suddenly realize that they're there in the room. We're on equal terms, so it's all going to be down to dex and just finding out exactly how far these characters are away from us. Let's do their statistics. We'll work out what they have. A d8 -1 for each goblin. So the first goblin is 6 -1 is 5. He's quite tough. Next one is, it's a minimum of 1 we have, so he's not. 3 -1 is 2, so he's quite weak too. 5 -1 is 4. And 1 -1 is 1. Because it's a minimum of 1. Okay, so quite a weak. There's one, obviously one, probably sergeant amongst them. He's in charge, but the rest of them are pretty poor. And I think on the armor class we're talking about, I think it said they wear leather armor and carry swords and daggers. So leather armor is, according to this, gives them an armor class of. Leather armor is armor class 7, and they have swords, so it's 1d6 for swords and daggers, which they might use, but we've got that as a background. Okay, so that's the goblin setup. Now, the way combat works is that we do, there's a kind of rough sequence to this. Because we're on equal terms, we get, based on our dexterity, some actions. However, there's still some priorities that are done first, and the first thing that is done is actually spell casting. So you do spell casting, then you do missile fire, and then you do melee combat. So I think there's a chance that we get maybe some spells off, and what we can also simulate is whether the goblins start to charge towards us. What also might be useful to do maybe at the start of this is really just to find out whether they have a reaction to us, and just see how hostile they are. Maybe they are a bit stunned, and I think what we do is we'll just roll on the hostile friendly reaction table, and maybe just have obviously have a bit of a penalty on that maybe we reduce it by say 2, just so that we can get a bit more of a realistic outcome on that. So let's roll 2d6 and take 2 off for that. So they have 10 minus 2 is 8. So they're uncertain. So maybe that kind of dithering is going to help us. They just kind of almost like frozen in their tracks. They're uncertain. So let's roll another 2 just to see what they do. And this might give us the edge for combat. So they go 9 minus 2. Again, they're still a bit uncertain. So maybe we could say surrender and we'll let you go. But, you know, there's 5 against 5. I don't think they're going to be on. So I think maybe we've got a bit of an edge there. What we can do is say, well, as a party, what we, you know, would we want to use one of our spells? Maybe this is the time to use our sleep spell. You know, there's five goblins there. Yeah, I think that might be something to do. Or if they're going to be, well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. They're going to be 40 feet away. Maybe we could loose an arrow or 2. We're only going to take maybe 1 out. Or should we just do a straight on fight when they come towards us and take them on? I think because there's 5 of them, this is initially where we're trying to get through. I think it might be better. I tell you what, instead of me having a debate with myself, why don't we just do what we've been doing so far, and we'll do a bit of an option decision. We'll say on a 1 to 2 we do sleep. On a 3 to 4 we do the missile. And on a 5 to 6 we do probably the missile plus fight. And we don't use that. We keep our sleep spell for another occasion if we're up against maybe tougher opposition. So I think that's a fairer way of resolving it. And then what I can do is I can set all this combat up for next time, and we can just get straight into it and have a good old rummux with the goblins. So let's find out what we're going to do. We decide to do, we're going to do missile and fight. So let's loose the arrow first. We'll loose the arrow and we'll say that's 10, 20, 30, 40, say 50 away. And the short blow range is, we might be able to pick one off before we can finish. So short bow range is on our table. For short bow is 0 to 50, so it is short range, so we get a +1. So it's going to be our first combat roll of the game. Yay! So a 1st to 3rd level character against leather armor is 12 +1. Farah needs an 11 or more on her d20. What's she going to get? Is she going to get a goblin? She misses. So our first arrow misses. Now the goblins, they can start to engage. And I think goblins have a movement of so look at goblins. Goblin move at 60 foot per turn. So according to my rule, they can move 20. So they're going to move 20 further towards here. So they'll get to this point here. And what I thought I would do with the actual combats was I was just going to basically do a quick rough thing here and set it up here. And almost have a scale of, so what it suggests in Holmes is that we use a scale of almost like a wargaming scale of 1 inch to 10 feet. So I thought, well, why not just do the 1 inch to 10 feet? I can set it up, have a bit of a picture. And I think that would be better to do for me to set up, and we can run through that simulation. So we've had a shot of the bow. We know that the goblins are starting to maybe, they've decided, or they're aggressive, we better take them on. No more of this uncertainty, charge. So they decide, they draw their swords, screaming their war cries, they're charging forward. They cover already 20 feet. They've only got another 20 feet to go. We could probably get another shot off for Farah. We're ready. We're probably lining up so that we can take them all on. So what we'll do is at the start of next episode, we will be lined up, ready to go. And as I said, you will see the Holmes combat system in all its brutal glory And let's maybe we should be drawing lots just now to see how many characters survive this. We don't really have maybe the toughest opposition. This one might prove a bit of a goblin to fight, and this one. But the other two, if we get one hit on them, you know, they're out. And hopefully we can maybe pop one of them with a missile next time. But let's see how we get on next time. Because this is such a you know, the beauty of the Holmes system is that it's not a complicated rule set to do. So the element of prep is limited, and also because I'm using a pre-generated scenario, you know, with these maps and these keys, I can really just almost like have them on a conveyor belt. So what I'm planning to do is probably get another one of these out today, and we'll be able to resolve the goblin conflict. So I don't want you to feel like you've been shortchanged, you haven't seen the fighting. You know, this is all part of the. It's almost like this is stage 2 is coming up as a sequel, and we'll be able to kick off straight away with the fight, and you'll get to see all this. All our characters do all their stuff with these goblins from the word go. Okay, well, I enjoyed that, getting all that set up, getting the introduction to the Tower of Zenopus and our mission brief, getting a bit of familiarization about how we're going to be doing the adventuring, a bit of exploring at the start to see how we are going to be navigating this dungeon, what mechanics we're going to be used to supporting us. I quite like the randomness on the characters. You know, obviously I would not be using that if we are, say, using my random dungeon, because that is going to be more it's going to be more just based on what characters' decisions are that are going to influence that. There might be an element of still the random character in decision making, but you know, this is probably going to be in the most extreme case of it with this pre-generated scenario. And the other thing, I quite like having this dungeon master avatar coming in and offering useful information, and probably some advice about how to interpret the rules, and just about what rulings he thinks are what should be applied in these situations. Okay, so yeah, first thing next time we'll be doing Goblin combat one-on-one. Thanks for joining me this time, and I'll see you next time.